So another video we put out yesterday, actually, just filling up some time here. We'd like you to check it out if this is the first time watching or if you're a subscriber. Please take a look. We do have some information we put out yesterday about what the ride is going to be like in some of these urban air VTOL aircraft. And it's actually a little bit more important because it's taken from a firsthand perspective of types of aircraft that exist today to give you different typical type rides at different altitudes and what people should be expecting. So if you got a chance, please take a look at that one. It's one of the ones where we can actually give you a little bit of an insight as to what we think are going to be some of the additional challenges to this. So we'd appreciate that too. Okay. All right. Without further ado,
Dude.
let's get started. So we didn't go over the order at the top of the show. So what are we doing first? Want to do Airbus first?
Yeah, let's do that. Why not?
Okay. So this time, what we're going to do is we're
Do
going
it.
to go silent for a moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to take this in. This is directly from the press release that we got from the city, from the actual Airbus Corporation. They allowed everybody to take in this content, download it, do as they would like. And by doing such, we have the opportunity to give you the content that they have prescribed for the media outlets. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to queue up a nice video for you and give you basically the rundown. If you're not familiar, Airbus is a major player in the helicopter marketplace. They have been for a very long time. These guys were previously Eurocopter. And when I say Eurocopter is a well-respected helicopter manufacturer in the industry, there's pretty much, in most people's eyes, two major players, and that would be for the light and medium twins. That would be basically Airbus and Bell. MD probably third on that list, but there's a lot of reasons to say that if Airbus turns around and says that they're going to get into the urban air mobility marketplace, I think you should listen because these guys are definitely a company that deserves your attention because there's a lot more that we're going to talk about after the video, but here's what they're basically presenting as their vision of the future of air travel in the urban markets. And without that, here we go. So it's being called the CityAirbus Next Generation, and with that, there are a few other things. Oh, they'll have some Airbus logos that we're playing there at the end. Okay, so they do have some other things that we could start off with. That this is just some of the specifications because they did release it with specifications, which is great. What they're basically saying here is this thing's going to have an 80-kilometer range, roughly 50 miles or 43 nautical miles. Also, 120 nautical mile or 120 kilometer cruise, which means 75 miles an hour or 65 knots for those who are pilots. And they're saying that basically this is going to be a 65 decibel range when flying over and a 70 decibel range of audible noise when it's actually landing. Okay. Now, one of the other things that needs to be mentioned is Airbus is a major player. And when we look at the vehicle design that they're proposing here, and when I say proposing, the thing that we have to keep in mind is this is a company that has been through many development cycles. They have produced legitimately sold for profit aircraft in the aviation industry. They have the ability to seek both the EASA and FAA certification, and they have the means in which to do lots of studies on how to create, build, and actually make longevity out of parts inside and around aircraft. Okay. Just going to put that out there because the reason why I say that is because you cannot discount this one as being just one of these Joby or Archers or any one of these other ones that has S-packed their way into this marketplace. These guys could, and I'll say almost should be able to strong arm a part of the industry. And I hold nothing back when I say that because they can. Okay, that they have the ability to do that. And Corey, what's your 2 cents on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said, Mike, is perfectly valid, and I think just to reiterate, I mean, again, to keep in mind that this is they had two demonstrators before. They had the City Airbus, which was the one. If you, I don't know if you get a picture of it, but it was the one that was just four rotors, kind of above, and it was one of their first technology demonstrators. So if you look at that, you'll see. If you look it up, if you look up CityAirbus, you'll probably get a picture of that one first. And then they had the Vahana, which also had eight propellers on that one as well. And again, just in the article, they say, yeah, they learned a lot from those things, and now they're moving on with the CityAirbus NextGen. That's what they're calling it, the next gen or next version of the CityAirbus. And this is the one that they look to seem to want to be bringing to market. And yeah, it does lend itself to exactly to those things to say they've done technology demonstrators. They've proven on their own that it works in their testing. And now they're looking to actually bring the thing to market. And I mean, it's just what you said before too. I mean, this is Airbus. They've built plenty of aircraft, helicopters. They're in civilian, they're in defense, they're all over the place, right? So this is not a small company. If you're into aviation at all, you know the name Airbus. Right. And so for them to be, and we knew if you looked up VTOLs, you knew Airbus was doing stuff and they were doing testing in these previous versions. But now, this press release just from I think 2 days ago, this is what they're going to be moving to market, and yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. I just for my own 2 cents on my own 2 cents, we still can see that there are 8 exposed rotor systems that are out there in the airflow on the tips of the vehicle itself. So they're not enclosed, they're not shrouded, they're not ducted fans or anything. So it's just interesting to see that it's kind of a they're going with the same kind of design they had with like the Vahana, like exposed rotors. But also noteworthy to say that they're not shrouded like they were with the CityAirbus version 1. I'll call it for just.
And
it
looked like the CityAirbus. The CityAirbus had top and bottom. It looked like inside those nacelles, they had one on the top and one on the bottom from what it looked like, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right.
I think that was one of the things.
I could be wrong about that. But I think that's right. So that is interesting. I mean, and as we learn more about this, is pretty new. We'll look to see if we can maybe get some more information on how it works aerodynamically as far as why they maybe went without the shrouds.
I don't know.
I'm trying to see as well. Picture of this. I've got the tips of the blades.
I've got a picture of the prototype that they flew. And again, and I think between the combination of the two, they had 242 flights and what was it, 1,000 kilometers of actual time on the odometers,
yes, right? I don't know if you mentioned that, but yeah, between the two demonstrators, they've said they've had 1,000 kilometers of testing over those two devices or two vehicles, encompassing 242 flights. Again, flights of whatever length of time, but nevertheless 1,000 kilometers total between those two vehicles. So yeah, and that is significant. I know we've covered this with some other ones. When we cover other VTOLs, we try to mention what kind of testing they've done, and I am sure there are some that have gone that far, but we don't know too many in terms of the public eye. What's been released, so not a lot of them that we know of that have gone that far.
I'm interested in one thing. Yeah, actually two things that strike me on this design, and I've got the pictures of it going on in the background. And basically that is that these they say that one of the things that they really enjoy about their design is there's no transition of their propulsion devices from a vertical to a horizontal position, right? And if you look at the design of this, it actually bodes well for what they're speaking of, because it seems like these two tail mounted on the ends of the V, it looks like those two propellers or rotors, whatever you want to call them at this point, it looks like they're angled to create more thrust in what's going to be probably the forward flight condition. And also it looks like the two that are just on the backside of the wings have a little bit more of a cant to them, so that they're going to aid in forward propulsion. Now, the fact that this thing isn't going for screaming speeds, it's only going, like we said, for a low speed. Now, here's the thing that I will say. even after yesterday, after we put up a video that says what's the the flight dynamic going to be for this style of
Right.
aircraft, right? One thing we didn't say is that at about a 75-mile-an-hour clip, the ride, if it's short and low enough at certain areas, could be for this particular design. I could see them working around the fact that 75 miles an hour, you might not get jostled around so much. You might be in that sweet
Maybe,
spot.
maybe. Yeah, I mean, just yeah, there's so many facets to try to consider. I mean, when we talk about where these aircraft will be flying in terms of like, of course, where they're going to be used, how far they want to go versus, how high would they want to go before they just get to kind of a
Right.
cruise. As you just mentioned before, right? This is about a 43 nautical mile
Hmm.
range, if you just nautical miles for everybody out there that's interested in nautical miles, and then 65 knot
Hmm.
speed. So we know that's not that fast and not really that
No.
far. But again, as you mentioned, we could envision they're not going to be climbing to 8,000 feet to do
No.
these flights. It's going to take too long. So this is going to be intra-city, right, in the same city, kind of one side of the city to the other. I would envision something like that, and that could be where I was thinking, where we're going with that was, since it's in the city, my next thought is, and we still don't have a definitive answer on exactly how this is going to go yet, but airspace wise, where does the FAA want to put
No.
these
No.
aircraft in the airspace in terms of altitudes? If you're into aviation and flying, there's like certain routes that low level aircraft, maybe helicopter routes, if you know about those, so there's some routes the FAA knows this kind of low level aircraft, where they want to put
Right.
those. Are they going to have routes,
Don't know.
whether they're published or not? Routes for these kind of
I would
vehicles.
imagine if they're
Um,
going to
I
be, they
imagine,
would be. But here's the thing, the only last
yeah,
caveat
yeah,
that I would have on this design is that it's got a decent sized wingspan, right? And the
it does. Yeah, it's
only
not
other thing is that
too small.
the blades that are at the edge of the wings are actually still exposed. So you still do have the incident where you could get a blade strike on something depending on where you have your your
Sure.
landing
Yeah.
area together.
Then where you
Yeah,
go with it,
depending where you
yeah.
go with it. So,
I do wonder, because the cabin, they say it's a 4-passenger cabin, and I could be wrong, but it looks like there might be a seat in the front with 4 behind,
that's what it looks
possibly.
like, yeah.
It's hard to tell. So I'm just trying to get a feel of, what do you think that wingspan is, including tips of the rotors, like
I'm gonna say you're gonna be close to 40
40
feet. Yeah.
feet?
Look, I mean,
Yeah, that's
it's
what I
gonna
was
be
going to
close to
say.
40
40,
feet,
45
right?
feet.
And but now
Um,
the slow speed characteristics lends itself to this design, and that's what I'm seeing here in their design is that there's more lifting surface with wing shapes to it, so that they're going to take advantage of that lifting surface even at low speeds. So
yeah.
they've designed that
Yep.
into the aircraft, right? Look, here's the thing: out of all the designs that are out there, though, I can guarantee you one thing: these guys have had so much extensive experience in developing aircraft that they do have an upper hand in gathering a lot more data over the time that they have been a functioning company in building aircraft. Okay.
Mhm.
Yes, you could go through, computer dynamics. You could go through a lot of simulations, arrive at what aerodynamic flow should, could, would do. But these guys, I'm sure, have put a little bit more time and energy into the investment of, well, what works best. Because some of the things you may not know is that Airbus has been influential in trying to increase the speed of forward flying rotorcraft. They've experimented with pusher pods. They've experimented with lots of other designs out there. So this iteration from them, I'm sure they've gotten here by some pretty hard number crunching. So that's one of the things that, and it's Airbus, so I can't discount them. I couldn't say, hey, these guys may or may not make it. Likelihood is you're going to see this thing fly. And I'm going to say
Mhm.
you're going to see it fly probably sooner than most. It's going to be there.
And I do want to just mention a few things just for comparison for noise levels. You mentioned earlier they were talking about 65 decibels during
Hmm.
flyover and about 70 decibels during landing. Just some quick comparison, looking these numbers up. 70 decibel level is something like a radio or TV audio when you're like in the same room. Maybe living room music, again, from an audio system where you're in the same room. A vacuum
Mm,
cleaner. I mean, some are more quiet or noisier than other ones. That's about 70
okay,
decibels. 60 decibels, for reference, is like a conversation at the same table in a restaurant, a
not
busy
bad.
office, background music, or air conditioner unit at 100 feet or
Oh,
so.
really?
That's a 60. So we're thinking somewhere, again, they're saying 65 to 70 decibels for these two flying regimes. So somewhere in there, um, isn't that bad? And I
No, it's
know,
not bad at
we've
all.
talked about Joby and some other ones that are in the 60 decibel range. So they're all fairly quiet. There was a video that just came out 2 days ago. Joby was saying some flyovers.
Yes, I
Did you see
did.
that one?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
I
know if
saw
you
that
saw
one.
that one. So yeah, that's a good range. So just if some reference if anybody's wondering, okay, how quiet are these
Sure.
things?
And
Something
and
like
look,
that.
obviously they've only released a little bit of information. They haven't released how long it takes to charge it, what their strategy is on how they're going to
Yeah.
develop their actual bases and how they're going to implement it. But as a first wet your whistle shot across the bow of anyone in the marketplace right now, this is it looks phenomenal. And again, it's Airbus. So it's not like they haven't launched unsuccessful aircraft before. They've had some that have not been successful in the marketplace, but it's Airbus. They've got the backing. So,
Yep.
all right, folks.
Yep. I do. I
Well, go
do.
ahead.
I do think as well. Just kind of my last thoughts as well that with 8 rotors on board, they must be very well. I'm sure, obviously, but that goes without saying. They're controlling. They're trying to slow those tip speeds down as much as possible to keep that noise down while still making the same lift. So maybe the rotors are quite pitched.
Yeah.
They're a lot more pitched than maybe something that spins a bit faster. So, but I guess where I'm going with that is, as you mentioned before, it's the same. The rotors are exposed, and it's always something to know where you have um, people in and out of these vehicles that are not innately pilots, maybe not innately thinking about their safety.
Right.
So it's just another thing to mitigate out as best as possible when you have passengers that are not familiar with maybe a possible hazardous working condition. I'm sure, again, being electric though, right? When the thing lands and it's like sturdy, I'm sure they'll just spin to a stop and they won't be moving at all when you board, which is another thing just to be aware
Yeah.
of too. So
And
we'll
then
see.
I guess the last thing, and then we'll cut to another subject, is what will this thing do in an emergency landing situation, or if there's a system failure, or what the next challenge is for other operators is how does it safely land?
Yep.
But it looks cool.
Yep.
I'm excited for them. I generally say let's see if this one succeeds, but I will go out on a limb and say that in general, I know that this one will probably make some very influential pre-production flights and routes where they will be testing it, and we will probably see that. I would guess within a year to a year and a half. So
I would
and
imagine, yeah. They actually, I'm sorry, one more thing for me. I did have another note. They are saying they're aiming for certification by 2025. So just like you're saying, I would see definitely that something would be flying. Some type of prototype for this would be flying, whether we see it or not. Public at next
yeah,
year.
absolutely.
Mid to end next year at the latest, because depending on where they certify it, I'm sure they'll try to certify it everywhere. Being
Yeah,
Airbus, they're probably going to try to certify it EASA first, but they may go the same route that other companies are going, where they concurrently try to get them certified at the same time, FAA and EASA. So
we'll
we'll
see.
see.
And getting an aircraft certified takes lots of time and hours. So let's keep
Yes.
everybody up to date on this one. This is a great one to watch. Good to see this announcement. Came at the perfect time when all these S packs are starting to formulate. Other companies are obviously trying to bring forward their best foot. They're showing their flying demonstrators right now at this point, and Airbus wants to land squarely in that marketplace and make sure that they're still heard. So I would assume that this is Airbus's way of putting a shot across everybody's bow and saying, "Hey, before you write that big check to the S pack, watch out because we have something here in development, and we're here to be taken serious." So let us know in the comments what you guys think below. Give us a little note. Tell us if we got this one right, wrong, what your expectations are of the Airbus CityAirbus, and what you think of it being possibly the future of eVTOLs and urban air mobility. So thanks for watching, and let us know what you think. Okay, wrap